Next, we're going transatlantic, not even transatlantic, sorry, international, to Jannat, who's going to be presenting on the Australia-New Zealand Digital Twin Hub. So, Jannat, over to you, please. And your screen.
Share my screen. Hello, everybody. Just so you all know, it's like 20 to 11 here in the evening.
Your screen not yet coming up.
So, is it there?
It is now.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So yeah, 20 to 11. So I might seem a little bit tired, but it's cool. So thank you first of all for the opportunity to join the call. Just really quickly, I was the country manager for Smart Cities Council Australia and New Zealand, which hosts Australia New Zealand Digital Twin Hub for New Zealand. So I was the country manager for New Zealand for 2020 and 2021, and then stepped into a contract role as the interim executive director across ANZ from February just to now, like just in the middle of September I finished. So I know about the hub and stuff, but I don't actually currently work with them. But they were comfortable with me, giving a in terms of my connection with the DT Hub UK. And actually, I also support Melissa and Ali with some back end admin on the community council. So I'm going to rush through this quite quickly. Everything's on the website, the one that you just saw pop up before, and also if you want more information on Smart Cities Council, it's smartcitiescouncil.com. But this is a little bit of history about SCC globally, and then SCC ANZ. We celebrated 5 years in Australia and New Zealand just at the end of last year. Adam and I pulled that together. Adam Beck. Very quickly, like I said, I wasn't really involved for the whole of those 5 years for the ANZ portion of or chapter or whatever it is, branch of SCC. But very quickly and early on, Adam identified along with a number of stakeholders that data leadership was really going to be something that needed a focus. And I know internationally, not just in ANZ. So the DT Hub focus actually comes under the umbrella of data leadership. And if you want to find out more about the data leadership work that SCC leads and has done, there's a tab on that at the SCC website. So the DT Hub itself, ANZ, really simple goal: build a thriving digital twin marketplace across Australia and New Zealand and the Pacific Islands as well, was obviously part of our remit as well. In the early days, there was a summit held, I understand it, in 2019 in Australia. And that, along with a number of conversations, led to the establishment of a task force within the group. Then released a guidance note, brought the broader digital twin community together, and then launched the hub. And so from the conversations and the summit, it was very quickly identified that we needed to put something there, a resource, somewhere where people could engage with others. To understand what digital twin enabled growth could look like, the fact that whole element around data leadership and how could we, go about procuring, I guess, data leadership, and that it was really, really evident that not all policymakers and practitioners will have the same capability or access to the same information. So we really needed to be clear about, who needed to know what and when, and how they needed to interact, and that was what the hub was about. The guidance note, just quickly, it's all still on the site if you're ever interested, but it runs through definitions, talks about minimum capability of a digital twin, benefits, policy, governance, standard strategy. So the sort of what you would expect with something like this. And really, really importantly, it provided an essential definition and structure at a time, and I'm talking like 2020, when there wasn't really anything out there. And I know that there's a lot of work that's happened since and ongoing with Standards Australia, and I, as part of SCC, used to sit on that working group for Digital Twin, which is actually chaired by Adam Beck, who founded Smart Cities Council ANZ. The hub itself did have a few more other elements to it, like the DT Hub UK, and I quite like the DT Hub UK platform, and I've let the team at SCC know they might want to look into it. But we did have a forum, and we did have a couple of other elements that I actually stripped back because they weren't being used. And so now really it's more of an informational site, tells you about events, tells you about virtual and in-person events, talks about the challenge, which I'll mention shortly. It collates all the resources that we've got to date, and on a regular basis we try and put out some news, and then it just sort of points people to lots of recordings and of webinars and events that they can actually then go back and watch, like Digital Twin Hub TV. It was launched, as I mentioned, in 2020, and it's all there for you to have a look at if you're that way inclined. So since 2020, then, which is when I came on board, but totally nothing to do with the fact that I came on board, activity just sort of sped up from there as the hub was launched. So I pulled together the community of practice in New Zealand. Of course, there was already the collaborative across Australia and New Zealand, but this was sort of a more focused one with local government. Adam hosted the first Digital Twin Week virtually in 2020. 2021, I hosted the New Zealand Digital Twin Summit, which was a follow-on from one that a smaller one that was held in 2019. Then soon after the summit, the Australian-New Zealand Digital Twin Strategy Blueprint was released for feedback. The Digital Twin Challenge 2021 was launched, and I'll talk about that a little shortly. DT Hub Meets were launched, and that's similar to this Gemini call. And actually, there's a number of people that are involved with the Australian-New Zealand Digital Twin Hub that know people involved in the DT Hub UK, and so there was, and Digital Built Britain, Centre for Digital Built Britain, and so there was a lot of sort of talking and collaborating going on there. 2021 saw the second Digital Twin Week, and recordings of both, I understand, are available actually at the hub. And then I just recently hosted the 2022 Aotearoa New Zealand Digital Twin Summit, and Aotearoa is the Te Reo, which is the language of our Indigenous people here in New Zealand. It's their name for New Zealand, which means land of the long white cloud, as I remember. So that's what's happened since 2022. Since 2020. And again, nothing to do really with the fact that I came on board then. But the challenge is something I wanted to focus on, and just sort of the previous speaker was talking about how can we get some more engagement on the hub, and I mentioned the fact that we stripped back some of the features of the hub because they just weren't being used. And so what the challenge was, well, the blueprint, first of all, itself as a strategy blueprint, was something that could be used to encourage investment and engage interest, and I get some real strategic following and backup and alignment between digital twin and a number of sectors in both countries. And the idea was that, you know, those different parties would then start looking at collaboration opportunities, and in New Zealand, for example, there's a digital technologies industry transformation plan, and within that, data-driven innovation is a key element, and within that is the idea of a national digital twin for New Zealand. So I'm involved. I'm on the reference group for the digital twin. For the digital technologies industry transformation plan, and have been since 2018, and continue to be in my current capacity as well. So I'll be closely following that idea of a national digital twin and the twin of twins here. And involved in that work. But what Adam and the team actually launched was the challenge. So the challenge is actually, I wouldn't call it hand holding, but it's bringing together a number of stakeholders that put up their hand and said, you know, we've got something that we want to progress in this space, just not sure sort of, you know, we're heading in the right direction. We've got an idea for something. What about someone else that we could talk to? Or we've got something underway. Could somebody come and review it and sort of support us with that? And so there was 13 projects at the start across 17 organizations, including, you know, academia, local government, the solution providers, consultants, both from Australia and New Zealand. And so there are 13 projects are to release resources now to the market as part of an event in February, and that's the last thing that I wanted to mention on the next slide. But the idea was that we needed more than just, people didn't have content to actually add to a hub, and even if it did, they were often in their own silos and had their own sort of not mandate, I would say, but their own sort of repository where they would put their information. And so collaboration wasn't happening across the ecosystem, and it wasn't just people didn't know that something was going on that could be relevant. They didn't know how to then go about connecting with that and then go about pursuing collaboration. And through the hub, actually, I personally know of at least 3 or 4 times when us bringing people together in the various sort of ways that we did on the hub through the Digital Twin Hub, they actually led to better outcomes for the organizations involved, and there are a number that are already still underway. So I'll leave it there. Again, like the previous speaker, I want to leave some time for Q&A. But I will mention that, I'm sorry about the sort of blur here, but it's the best image that I could get. But before I finished up, I planned as much as I could of smart cities, which it will incorporate Digital Twin Week in February in Melbourne as a sort of major event on the radar of ANZ. And so that's where we'll see the Digital Twin Challenge cohort come together and speak. They already spoke at the New Zealand Digital Twin Summit. But again, have a look at the hub. That's the hub's email address. That's mine if you at all wanted to get in touch. But more of the hub engagement at digitaltwinhub.org. Go to the hub, digitaltwinhub.org. Go to smartcitiescouncil.com. There's a number of resources there around data leadership. But that's basically what the team did and has done around digital twin for Australia and New Zealand. And I will leave it there.